Now, before their transition, did they speak multiple languages like we do here on Earth?
Yes.
And afterwards, did that shift and change into a collective language before they became telepathic?
They revived a more ancient, like father language for their peoples, and they would use that, like, but mostly telepathy doesn't need it. It's
right.
It's like an art form for
right.
them.
A lot of people on Earth are speaking in ancient father language, what we call light language. Is that what's happening here on Earth right now? Is that we're transitioning? And that's part of that process?
It's part of it. Some of this light language is coded, and it delivers without interference from the conscious mind. And the channeler receives and transmits coded frequency, and it comes through the sound. It's kind of like Sanskrit.
So if I were to communicate in light language with this being, would he understand what I'm saying or not?
Yes.
Would it be advisable for me to be able to communicate with him briefly in that language?
Yes.
Parakota inkokoiri kata mbastu kota yarputai. Kata stukanai pokarai kata nkayiro karai bondo kashte kata ori tatika mpukishte kata am. Karakotai?
Yes, he remembers.
And would he be able to validate or comment on what I've just communicated with him?
Karunshishkavist, Umkayachalacht, Umskoa, Karaish Aleft.
Parokatate inkakaistoka.
Shinkanskatreske. The heaviness of the body, that's the dilemma.
Parokatata impokatiasta.
I don't know who's talking now, but he says it's okay.
Okay. And what does he mean by that? What is okay?
He says it's all right. It's okay. There's no need to fear. The body is a temporary housing. It's not permanent.
And so is light language something that Travis can have access to?
He knows.
Has he been speaking it already?
Yes.
And has he been able to communicate that with any other beings here on Earth?
He hesitates. He doesn't feel like that's his method, or he doubts it.
But is that true?
It can be his method. One of them.
So what happens with his physical body whenever he does speak it out loud?
He remembers like a state of mind coherence with Source, with his higher aspects, and he feels this in the body. That's one of the ways.
Does anything happen physically to his DNA as he speaks light language?
They show that it's part of the tools. It's part of the many available light tools, and the DNA is repairing, and there's like white light that's very, very specific, that's traveling through the DNA, and it's conscious, and it's activating like dormant DNA. It's extremely specific.
Okay. And if he were to speak this language to people who...
Megan would understand.
Okay.
His friend Megan would understand.
Would he also help to activate that in her?
Yes.
And so they could communicate together?
She can speak it too.
Okay. And when they speak it to people who are still what we would call asleep or not...
It would just be babbling.
But
they may receive it, but the interference may not be a net
It might block
gain.
it.
Yes.
But what if he were in a group of people who are awakening who maybe don't have access to that ability within themselves? Would that help to awaken them?
Yes.
Even further. Wonderful. So, is that something that will just become like a stepping stone for us Earth humans?
The light language is a transitional. It's a transitional language.
Yes.
And yes.
So it's another one of those signs.
Of course.
Okay. Very good. Is there anything that you can share with us about why there's so many dialects of light language versus all of the Earth humans basically speaking the one true original ancient Earth language?
The gestalt of it, and this is still Akhmet showing me, is the light language is moving it's moving the conscious presence of that individual and their attunement into sound, which is a powerful creator. Mm-hmm. And it is bringing like the resonance of sound in the body, both in the practitioner and the recipient, together. And there are many dialects because the term language is misunderstood. It's not that a certain sound would mean or represent a certain thing. It's a consciousness that's transmitted. It's like an intermediary between spoken earth-based language and telepathy.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too. So it's kind of like syncing up the consciousness between beings when it's being spoken and received.
Yes, without the filter of analytics.
Analyzing it, yes. Perfect. Okay. So, Akhmet, if...
He's showing me this bird. He wants to be sure that I see this bird before I go.
Okay.
It's not alive though. It's like a little toy, like a little wind-up toy. Mm-hmm. With a tail that flaps and feet that move, and it's like a small thing, and it's like a I don't know, like a little child's wind-up toy, and it moves its beak. I don't know what this is.
Can you ask him what the symbolism of that is?
He sees the birds outside. He says all of these tools, including light language, are wonderful tools. But think of it as like this bird is a plaything. Mm-hmm. This is like
it's like a new toy.
It's a creation into the reality instead of the reality having created it itself. Right. It's not a language that comes from the cosmos. It's a way of removing the human's interfering brain with light communication, and that there's more that comes. Like this is like a primitive tool almost, even though it seems advanced to us.
Right. Wonderful. That actually is so fascinating. So thank you so much. That really...
He's really happy to connect with you too.
Thank you.